So when we talk about fuel prices in the country, we have to go back to 2018 to analyze exactly what the average retail prices of selected fuels have been in the country. Okay, let's look at them this morning so we can have a talking point on them as well. Because now, if you look at exactly that average price, then you can actually say that 2020 really has represented what has been, yes, a sort of downward trend in terms of the average fuel prices in the country, because we can actually say that from light diesel all the way to motor spirit, which is premium, then has been on a downward trend. But I want you to look at exactly where we were towards the end of 2020 at 102 shillings and 49 cents and 94 shillings and 31 cents when it comes to light diesel. But that changed again as we started 2021, because we do know now this 102 now has an average of 115, and this 94 has an average of what? 102. So meaning that those prices have jumped. But I want to take you back again to 2020, early 2020, when we did have the diesel levy, which was supposed to take effect as of July. Now, let me tell you what it was supposed to act. It was supposed to act as a hedge fund, that every time international fuel prices shoot up like they have shot now to 5,420 shillings a barrel, then the diesel levy will kick in and cushion you from this expensive international prices. Now, you would think that this is the time then that the National House would come in and kick it back to action. But no, because now what we do know now is that, well, we have to wait for another 21 days, because the Petroleum Development Levy Order 2020 Legal Notice 124 of 2020 will still have to wait for 21 days as of from February 16th, 2021. But what we do know is that the state has still continued to collect the 5 shillings and 40 cents a litre of diesel as we wait for exactly what happens, whether this is going to be passed into law for us to sort of talk about a hedge in terms of cushioning the economy from the high energy prices in the country. Fine. So let's see exactly how much it is that we've been getting from fuel taxes in the country, therefore, so we can actually also put that conversation into a proper context. 2018, 2017, 2018, you see exactly where we were in terms of billions. Coming to 2018, 2019 again, shortfall. That's exactly what we're saying there. But we do know 2020 wasn't exactly a very good year for the international fuel prices in the whole world, because we did see exactly how the coronavirus pandemic affected activities that would require the energy for them to be driven. But now what we do know is that whether we like it or not, we have to wait for an extra 21 days for that diesel levy to kick in. Yes, because we're still waiting for that notice, that is legal notice of 2020 to actually get passed into law. All right, let's look at other news that you're waking up to this morning. What has been the state of COVID-19 in the country, which means that we have to go back to 24 hours and talk about it. All right, what is it? New fatalities have been 6. Total fatalities now stand at 1,807. Newly confirmed cases 283. Positivity rate at 5.8%, and total confirmed that is, under total confirmed positive cases now stand at 103,615. That is the state locally. Fine. Hospital admissions now stand at 277. ICU admissions 42. New recoveries are 66, and total recoveries now stand at 85,457. Good. That's exactly where we are in terms of the latest 24-hour data on COVID-19 in Kenya. But the story is this. Kenya is actually petitioning UN Security Council. Now, through that, they are urging wealthy nations not to hold surplus COVID-19 vaccines in the country, and are also saying that, well, if that goes on, then Africa is going to face a difficulty in inoculating its 1.3 billion people. Now, we do know that some other nations are making headway when it comes to the inoculation numbers, because that's exactly now the data that we have to look at. But in the country, we're still talking about zero vaccinated so far, because we're still waiting for the first batch of vaccines that are coming in. But now, according to Rachel Momamo, who made the plea Wednesday, she stated that some nations will fall behind in the vaccination race. They're also saying that Africa is actually getting these vaccinations at about double the price that some nations in actually Europe are getting it at. And now they're calling for everybody actually to come together to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And now this is the biggest plea that they also gave on Wednesday. They're saying that, well, when it comes to fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, because it's not just a one area, therefore, when you're looking at COVID-19 pandemic, they're saying it's even proper for us to be granted IP so that we could actually develop these vaccines here locally as well, so that the pricing model will be different. Whether that is going to be sort of wanted or not is a conversation again that we have to wait for, and whether we actually get those vaccines at the time that we need them is also exactly what we have to wait for them. What we do know is that AU has already secured 270 million vaccines for the continent. Yesterday, the Central Bank of Kenya gave Treasury 5 billion shillings. And so you wonder, how? All right, let's try to explain. Good. Let's go back to tax performance for the year 2019-2020. Rental income positive 18.2%. Domestic VAT negative 7%, and we do know exactly the conversation around domestic VAT in the country, because we did know that, well, it was removed from 16% back to 14% all the way in March last year. Capital gain tax 51.9%, that recorded a positivity change. Domestic excise negative 6.4%. Pay 2% performance, that's the growth, and they were expecting that this would jump. Now, we look at oil fuel taxes, well, negative 1.4%. We've already spoken about how the COVID-19 pandemic really did affect anything oil. Now, withholding tax, well, 18.2%, corporation tax 4.8%. Now, just before we jump into how the collections have been in 2019-2020, let's go look at where we have been in tax revenue for 2019-2020. Good. Now, and I want you to pay attention to July 2020 up to December 2020. This is where we had albeit increased revenue collections, but then again, during this period, one headline stands out, that the taxman missed those collections, now wait for it, by a whopping 107 billion bob. Good. Fine. All right, let's continue analyzing it. Now, let's talk about what has been the exchequer revenue all the way from 2018, 2019 to 2019, 2020 has been on a rising trend. But then again, when you look at it, the only thing that stands out is that, wow, what has been their mix? And we do know that from time to time, we have to talk about the budget misses, the collection misses that the taxman gets into at each end of the year. All right, now we come back to 2020 and something big happened, the coronavirus pandemic. And that's when we went back and borrowed a lot just to fill in the gaps that have been left in the economy because of these reduced collections that we're talking about this morning. All right. Now, since then, a lot of silent things have been going on that you really have to pay attention to, even as we go back to tax performance again in 2019, 2020 as well, so that we look at it. A lot of things have been going on. Number one, we did say no to some of the debt repayment reliefs that were supposed to go for last year. But then again, towards the start of this year, we were forced to go for them. We did ask the G20 countries to give us that. They did grant us that. We went back for China. They did give us that. In fact, also the Paris Club of countries, they granted us that as well. But remember, late last year, we said we do not need to go for them because indeed what they were going to do was affect our credit rating. But that changed. Why? I'll tell you why. We went back to IMF, and Richie, sorry for not picking that earlier on. Let's go back to what the debt that we go to IMF as well, so we can look at that as well. As Richie will get ready with that data this morning, so we can put this conversation into context. Now, when CBK is giving Treasury money, CBK is only viewed as the last resort. But how many last resorts have we seen? We've been running away from IMF, and if you look at exactly that data, good, let's look at it this morning as well on a closer perspective, because in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, look at our reliance on them. It has been dropping. I mean, that's the only conversation around this area. Back to 2019, it has been a downward trend. But then again, when you look at this data, therefore, that we've been getting from 2020 up to where we are right now, last year, they did give us 79B. This year, they did grant us 263B, meaning that our tact or our view of IMF changed immediately. But what did IMF do? They told Kenya, for you to come back and get money from us, you have to factor in an additional 3.4 trillion in your debt portfolio. And we did that. And the biggest explanation around that was that now we were supposed to actually add that on a graduated basis this week. We do know also that Treasury did go back and say that we need to amend our debt ceiling. We don't know what number that is going to be, or whether that is going to actually factor in the 3.4 trillion. What we do know is that now we are at a position where we are running for the last resort. So let's talk about the last resort from CBK, because we do know they got that cash boost as of yesterday to the tune of 5 billion shillings. And so if you look at what it is right now, they've actually obtained 14.8 billion since last year, including a 2.5 dividend for the year ended June 2020 and 7.3 billion gained from the cancellation of the old 1,000 shillings note. And the view of the CBK is that while things have not been going good for the country in terms of our revenue performance, and they're saying that this has been the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Talk about last resorts. This morning, we tabled that conversation. How bad are things locally for Treasury to go beg money from the CBK, or for the CBK to say, let me give you something because you're gonna die if I don't. 20146 is your SMS line at Metropole TVKE across your social media platforms. It is another day for us to start counting our 2 hours, isn't it? Right about now.